Schönen guten Morgen oder Mittag, kann man schon fast sagen. Heute sind wir um 12 Uhr erst dabei, nicht wie sonst um 11:30 Uhr, zu dieser neuen Veranstaltung von One Click to Europe, dem digitalen Weg, den wir gewählt haben, hier aus der Hessischen Landesvertretung, um trotzdem weiter diskutieren zu können, ohne Publikum und immer in der Hoffnung, dass sich das in Bälde ändern wird. Es gibt eine Neuerung heute, die ich gerne als erstes ankündigen würde, und zwar habe ich hier nicht ohne Grund ein Handy liegen. Es gibt von jetzt an die Möglichkeit für Sie, nicht nur online schriftlich Fragen zu stellen, sondern auch anzurufen und bei der Hotline praktisch Fragen hier abzugeben, die dann anschließend eingespeist werden können in dieses Gespräch. Die Nummer ist eine belgische Handynummer, muss Sie aber nicht schrecken. Wir sind ja in Zeiten, wo es keine Roaming-Gebühren mehr, zumindest innerhalb der EU, gibt. Soll heißen, teurer wird es dadurch nicht. Ich lese sie kurz vor, Sie sehen sie aber auch eingeblendet. Das ist die 0032 für Belgien, die 472 0301 81. So viel zu den Neuerungen des heutigen Tages. Und dann darf ich vorstellen, an meiner rechten Seite Katharina von Schnurbein, die Antisemitismusbeauftragte der Europäischen Kommission seit 2015, wenn ich das richtig im Blick habe. Wir kennen uns schon seit ewigen Zeiten, als du dereinst als Sprecherin von Spidla, einem Kommissar, ich sage einem, weil es lange her ist, für Arbeits- und Soziales praktisch nach Brüssel gekommen bist, danach aber relativ schnell schon als Beraterin für Barroso damals im Kontext Religion, Kirchen, Weltanschauungsgemeinschaften, ist ja dieses wunderschöne Wort, was da noch dazu gehört, gearbeitet hast, also lange in diesem Feld unterwegs. Und wir wollen heute reden über die Entwicklung von Antisemitismus und Rassismus, nicht allein im Kontext der Corona-Krise, das wäre auch ein bisschen artifiziell, aber sicherlich auch in diesem Zusammenhang. Zunächst einmal möchte ich jetzt, und hier muss ich gleich ein Mea Culpa voranschicken, zurückgeben nach Wiesbaden zur Europaministerin Puttrich, die ein Grußwort sprechen wird. Und Mea Culpa, warum? Weil ich gestern zurückgegeben habe nach Frankfurt, was natürlich als Vertreter einer Frankfurter Zeitung ein, gelinde gesagt, peinliches wie sagt man, ein feindlicher Fehltritt ist. Und darüber hinaus, wenn man berücksichtigt, das sei der Transparenz halber hier gesagt, dass meine Frau in dieser Landesvertretung arbeitet und mich auch gleich, als ich zu Hause wieder ankam, gestern übelst geprügelt hat, dass sie nach Frankfurt gegeben hat. Aber so viel zu diesem Thema. Zurück nach Wiesbaden. Frau Puttrich, Sie haben das Wort.
Herzlich willkommen bei unserer inzwischen 6. digitalen Veranstaltung One Click to Europe. Diese Veranstaltung ist beliebt. Wir haben viele Zuschauerinnen und Zuschauer aus vielen Teilen Europas und das Thema verbindet uns alle miteinander. Antisemitismus und Rassismus im Netz. Im Netz wird Hass geschürt, im Netz wird Hass verbreitet und Hass, der im Netz verbreitet wird, wird auch häufig Realität. Mit diesem Phänomen wird sich heute auseinandersetzen Katharina von Schnurbein. Sie ist die Antisemitismusbeauftragte der Europäischen Kommission. Ich freue mich, dass unter der Diskussionsführung von Hendrik Kafsack dieses Thema behandelt wird und wir uns mit diesem Hass im Netz auseinandersetzen, besonders im Hinblick auf Rassismus und Antisemitismus. Diejenigen, die auf Englisch zuhören möchten, können es diesmal auch gerne wieder tun. Wir haben diesbezüglich eine extra Tonspur. Insofern herzlich willkommen und nutzen Sie auch die Gelegenheit, nicht nur zuzuschauen, sondern bei der Sendung auch wieder mitzudiskutieren. Herzlich willkommen und bis bald.
So, noch einmal zur Erinnerung, die Telefonnummer, die Hotline, in die Sie sich praktisch einwählen können in Hessens Livestream, das ist die 0032 für Belgien, die 472 030181. Legen wir gleich los. Das Beste, was einem Moderator immer passieren kann, ist, wenn die Zuschauer Fragen stellen, die er sowieso gestellt hätte, dann kann ich mich dahinter verstecken, mich zurücklehnen und dir einfach das Wort überlassen. Und so gesehen fangen wir direkt an mit einer Frage, nämlich von Margot Bender, die dann im Kontext Corona-Krise auch gestellt ist. Ganz allgemein formuliert, in Krisen nehmen Antisemitismus und Rassismus tendenziell zu. Das tendenziell habe ich jetzt eingefügt. Stellen Sie das auch im Zusammenhang mit der Corona-Krise fest?
Ja, das ist in der Tat sehr besorgniserregend, was wir im Moment sehen. Wir haben eine Zunahme von ungefähr 30% antisemitischer Hassrede im Netz. Es gibt Verschwörungstheorien, die sich nicht nur gegen Juden richten, sondern zum Beispiel auch gegen Asiaten, gegen Migranten, gegen Flüchtlinge. Also es ist eine breite Diskussion, die Verschwörungsmythen hervorbringt, die dann natürlich auch sich konkret auswirken können in der Realität. Ja. Und das ist das, was wir beobachten, was ich glaube zum einen natürlich eine unangenehme Situation schafft für die betroffenen Gruppen, wenn sie im Netz sind, so wie wir alle im Moment sehr viel mehr im Netz sind. Auf der anderen Seite aber eben auch diese Verbindung, die wir gesehen haben in den jüngsten Attacken in Halle, in Pittsburgh auch, aber auch Christchurch, dass sich Menschen radikalisieren im Netz aufgrund von Verschwörungstheorien, vielleicht noch sogar mehr als Hassrede. Und wenn man denkt, dass die Juden den Virus kreiert haben und jetzt Geld damit machen, indem sie einen Impfstoff finden, dann ist die logische Konsequenz, dass man denkt, na, dann bringe ich sie vielleicht auch um.
Und das wären jetzt sozusagen zwei dieser Verschwörungstheorien, die da kursieren im Augenblick, dass das letztlich der Virus eben nicht aus irgendeinem Labor in China kommt. Und das ist ja letztlich auch schon ein Punkt, wo man an der Grenze zumindest der Frage ist, ob das nicht auch schon eine Verschwörungstheorie und motiviert gegen Asiaten meinetwegen oder Chinesen konkreter ist jetzt. Sondern dass das sozusagen von jüdischer Seite da ein Virus kreiert worden ist, um dann anschließend Geld zu scheffeln, um es mal so zu formulieren, ganz flapsig gesagt.
Die eine Idee ist, den Virus gibt es gar nicht, das sind so die Leugner und die sagen, aber es ist trotzdem eine jüdische Verschwörung, um uns weismachen zu wollen, dass wir alle zu Hause bleiben sollen, dass die Wirtschaft runtergefahren wird. Und natürlich hängt das auch immer dann mit Israel zusammen. Man denkt, dass Israel als Land ein Interesse daran haben könnte. Und dann die andere Idee, dass man sagt, sie haben ihn kreiert und jetzt machen sie es mit der Lösung.
Hat man ein Gefühl dafür, ob das auch mehr Resonanz findet? Das eine ist ja sozusagen, die Verbreitung, das winkt sich natürlich in gewisser Weise wahrscheinlich zu, aber das eine ist, ich habe Verschwörungstheorien, die so lauten, das andere ist, man hat das Gefühl, es findet auch einen fruchtbareren Boden als sonst. Kann man da irgendetwas zu sagen?
Also es ist tatsächlich so, aufgrund der Tatsache, dass Menschen mehr im Netz sind und gerade auch Menschen auf der Suche sind nach Antworten, woher kommt das Virus, wie ist das alles entstanden, weil es natürlich einen direkten Einfluss hat auf jedes einzelne Leben im Moment. Ja? Wir sitzen alle im Lockdown und das hat uns, glaube ich, hat uns wahrscheinlich noch nichts direkt berührt wie diese Krise. Deswegen, glaube ich, suchen die Menschen auch mehr nach Antworten und kommen deswegen auch auf Webseiten, wo diese Mythen gelehrt werden, die sich dann viel mehr in die Mitte der Gesellschaft vorarbeiten können, als das in der Vergangenheit der Fall war, wo bestimmte rechte, linke, extremistische Ecken damit mehr berührt waren, als es heute der Fall ist.
Das heißt in gewisser Weise, ich bin ein bisschen vorsichtig, ob ich den Begriff benutzen soll, aber dass das die Krise fast schon eine Art Brandbeschleuniger dann für den Antisemitismus in gewissem Rahmen.
Also ich glaube, dass der Antisemitismus-Virus sich ähnlich schnell verbreitet, wie auch Corona das getan hat am Anfang. Ja.
The virus of antisemitism spreads.
Dass es sehr schwierig ist, dem entgegenzuwirken, weil wenn das einmal Fuß fasst, dann ist es wesentlich schwieriger, das wieder zurückzuschrauben, als wenn es eben erst gar nicht stattfindet. Und das im Moment sozusagen in einen gewissen Rahmen zu bringen, ist mit Aufgabe auch Europas, gemeinsam mit den Mitgliedstaaten und den einzelnen Akteuren auf der regionalen und lokalen Ebene.
Bevor wir zum Rahmen kommen, die Sorge, du hast gerade so drastisch gesagt, wir haben gesehen, wie es eine Radikalisierung gegeben hat, der Täter von Halle ist sozusagen das, was wir uns leider alle noch allzu gut erinnern, ist es ja weiter. Es ist ja nicht so, dass das die Hauptsorge ist, dass da gleich jemand Amok läuft anschließend, sondern dass es einfach wahrscheinlich eine Basis geschaffen wird, die Antisemitismus dann viel breiter in der Gesellschaft macht, oder
ja,
gar nicht unbedingt das.
Doch, das ist sicherlich eine Seite, also dass mehr Menschen diesen Mythen glauben, auch und das haben wir aber vorher auch schon gesehen im Übrigen, ja, auch dass Sachen wieder gesagt wurden, die man sich nicht hätte vorstellen können, dass sie wieder gesagt werden würden.
Sozusagen das Sagbare, wie man es immer so schön sagt, einfach sich verschoben haben.
Das denke ich, ist wirklich eine Herausforderung, die eben nicht nur die Juden betrifft, sondern uns alle betrifft und die Gesellschaft als Ganzes. Und es war auch in der Vergangenheit so, dass wenn Antisemitismus steigt, dass man immer auch das Gefühl hatte, da ist was anderes im Argen. Ja, und das ist ja auch es wird die Demokratie in Frage gestellt, es wird die EU in Frage gestellt, es werden viele Institutionen in Frage gestellt, die letztendlich zur Lösung beitragen können und werden, aber die zunächst jetzt mal auch im Rahmen von Verschwörungen vielleicht uns auch schwächen als Gesellschaft.
Was aber letztlich heißt, dass der Antisemitismus in gewisser Weise eine Facette des grundsätzlichen, Facette ist vielleicht ein bisschen zu verniedlichend, aber ein Aspekt des grundsätzlichen Misstrauens in Institutionen, in die Demokratie etc. ist. Auch in dem
das ist vielleicht die Frage von dem Huhn und dem Ei. Ja. Ich glaube, dass Antisemitismus so ein Litmus-Test ist. Wenn der Antisemitismus steigt, dann wissen wir auch in anderen Bereichen in der Gesellschaft, stimmt was nicht. Und deswegen ist es auch so wichtig, den Antisemitismus zu bestreiten und auch gezielt. Also natürlich müssen wir alle Formen des Rassismus bestreiten, aber bei Antisemitismus, auch weil es die älteste Form des Hasses ist, die es schon so lange gibt und immer wieder in der Geschichte zu ganz konkreten Pogromen und Verfolgung bis hin dann zur Shoah geführt hat, ist es so wichtig, dass man das anerkennt und die Auswirkungen auf die Gesellschaft anerkennt und damit auch die Verantwortung der Gesellschaft.
To recognize how it affects
wie man damit umgeht, ansprechen, würde ich jetzt gerne hier eine Frage von Michael Rütters einstreuen, der konkreter nochmal nachfragt.
There is a question of Mr. Rütters. He is talking about anti-Semitism and hatred. Is this equal in all the member states or are there differences?
Wir sehen unterschiedliche Formen des
We see different forms of anti-Semitism. In the Western countries, many things are starting from racist ideas and also inside the Islamic extremists in the eastern member states. We have more the conspiracy theory because we do not have many Jews living in the eastern countries apart from Hungary. And therefore we have to tackle these things differently. For the Jewish community, it's the same if I have to think, can I get out here from the metro because it's safer, especially when we have Orthodox Jews? Or should I avoid to go to a certain place asking for money? Because they will answer, you have money, what do you want? The difference in between East and West, and the question was very neutral. Couldn't we say that in the west of Europe, in some countries in the east, like Hungary, there is anti-Semitism already from the government? Think about Soros, and we have to, I guess, differentiate. We questioned 16,000 Jewish members, and Hungary is the only country where they say today we feel safer than in 2013. Obviously, Soros is anti-Semitism, playing with these ideas, and Hungary, this is the only government where we, together with some organization of the Jewish community, they checked how Jews are described in the Shoah, from the Shoah up to today. It's complicated, and that's true for every country. And the physical menace is very strong in Eastern countries, and is something that is very difficult for people, because I always have to think what will be happening at school to my kids. Or do I want to go to the synagogue because there might be something happening? I have to pass 2 security checks. I have to reserve my spot beforehand. This is really a big challenge, and we can't say that one form of anti-Semitism is worse than the other. All the forms are terrible, and we have to fight against it. But how to do this has to be differentiated in the different countries. Let's talk about Hungary, because it's a very interesting mix in Brussels, and I guess also elsewhere. We know that with Orban we have anti-Semitism. On the other hand, the government seems to cooperate with the Jewish community. And is it not to just make everybody happy? I do not know what Mr. Orban is thinking. Yes, that would be really too much, a big challenge. But in fact, we have a lot of different instruments. We have different things that are going on, but things are very difficult to understand also for the Jewish community. On the one hand, therefore, it's very clear we have the help or the backup from the state, and on the other hand, what the Prime Minister is saying, this is difficult, and we consider them definitely anti-Semitism. But you have to name it, and we shouldn't avoid it and do as if this was just a simple lapse, and we exactly know that they used anti-Semitism also for their political interests. We don't want to talk about anti-Semitism in Hungary only. When you say you named it, that's the one hand. Wouldn't you like to see that next to the name we would also have somebody acting or reacting during the corona crisis, but also beforehand? Because sometimes we had a look on Hungary even before the corona crisis that was well, very nice, let's say. But what can we do in such a situation? We have a strict exchange with the Jewish community. We invite the Hungarian representatives. This person is working with the Prime Minister, and here is coming to our meetings where we are connecting the Jewish community with the representatives of the different member states. At the end, the decision how to react is something that has to be decided by the member states, and it's very clear. We can help, we can foster things. Hungary was helping when we were talking in 2018 against to have a paper against anti-Semitism, and we had obviously also a promise from all the member states against anti-Semitism. On the other hand, we have to be careful, and this is something that is not only very important in Hungary, it's also elsewhere. From the Commission, we would like to see measures in education, in security, and anti-terrorism, fight against terrorism. Now, it's not only black and white in Hungary, and in Hungary we also, as far as security is concerned, there something has changed. Let's have a look at the other states, at the other member states, where things probably are the same. Are there anyhow important differences in between the member states, and what about Germany? There is a difference in between what the state is doing as far as the security of the Jewish communities is concerned, but also other measures and the things that we see in the streets or in the net. This is something really frustrating. This is a difference that sooner or later has to be bridged in order to have these measures that influence the anti-Semitism that is still there. As long as we are deciding on measures in Europe that have to be realized, to be implemented in order to improve the situation for the Jewish community on the spot, this is our goal. If we want a future for the Jews in Europe, then we have to change the situation, I guess. It's difficult to imagine, but the fact that the Jewish community is integrated, they are working, and for 2000 years we always had these questions, what is your prime minister doing? But also the fact that they are not like us, and this is still there. I guess this is something that is very difficult to fight against. But this is not a complete answer. The situation did change, did improve. We see this in the security field because now many member states make risk analysis and take up measures, and it's not only done by the community because this is something crazy. It can't be the citizens that are responsible for their security. And this is one thing that is happening. What we see too is that the member states are agreeing on things, and with the police and with the education, they are working on it.
Concerning the training of teachers, as you just mentioned, that is this due to European history, or can we distinguish Eastern Europe from Western Europe? No, we cannot distinguish things like that. And if we teacher sees some anti-Semitic reactions on the playground, every teacher has to be faced with the question, what am I going to do when this happens? He should learn how to react during his training, and we would have to work much more on this. And I have an additional question, how I'm going to help victims. Jewish pupils are being attacked not only by Muslim pupils, but this is a general question. How should the school react? How can we come to a dialogue? Or does the school clearly say, here is the victim? On the other hand, we have the perpetrator to whom we should explain the situation. We shouldn't say there is a conflict which is being reflected here. Very often we go quickly over to excuses. On the one hand, we have what is being undertaken by the states for safety. And on the other hand, we have the perception of the Jewish community. It is not only a perception. this is real life. If your or my children go to a public school, is there being said, too bad that Hitler didn't end his job? These are concrete examples which are being experienced daily, also in Germany, with regards to France. We no longer report about this. This has become normal. And that leads to the fact that Jewish people send their children into Jewish schools because of a question of safety. And in fact, they don't want to send them into Jewish schools. They would rather send them to public schools. And of course, the question why the situation should be different for Jewish people in comparison to others. If I may come back to the following question concerning the differences between member states, just to come back to that item, to that issue. And on that basis, we can look out for a direction we would like to head for. If we put Hungary a bit aside, are there differences between France and Germany and Greece, for instance? Or is the progress we achieve rather the same? Anti-Semitism is not directly linked to the question whether there is a Jewish community and to the size of that community and whether this community is visible. There is no link, also because of the theory of conspiracy. Regarding France, we there have the biggest Jewish community in Western Europe, 500,000 people, and the figure is sometimes being increased. During the last years, 4,000 to 5,000 Jewish people left because they no longer felt safe. And regarding the small community, it is quite a lot. Some have come back, or others have tried to settle in Israel. But the fact that Jewish people have to reflect upon this, that they have to ask themselves the question, do I want my children to stay in Western Europe, or do I want them to live elsewhere? Well, this means that we have failed somehow. There is a tendency to provide for responsible persons for combating antisemitism on regional levels. I'm thinking of Uwe Becker, for instance, but on the spot, the situation hasn't been improved yet. Regarding France, we have the following question. We have this large Jewish community, and at the same time, we have a big Muslim community. They used to live in the same quarters. As culturally speaking, they very often came from Northern Africa, and they had a lot of things in common, but during the last decades, things evolved differently, and this tension led to the fact, and maybe this also has been a challenge, and maybe we missed some opportunity, well, to name by its name the anti-Semitism coming from the Muslim community, which also exists over there and which is being fueled by other sources. It is very important to mention this concretely. If you want to be part of the European society, well, it means also to be present and to live in this society as a Jewish person. which means more responsibility. Exactly. And that means that we have to train our teachers in a very different way. We have to prepare them concretely for their tasks. If a pupil says Holocaust in the classroom, another pupil replies, well, the Jews do just the same in Gaza. The response should be those situations are not comparable. It is a distortion of the Holocaust situation to compare situations like that. Of course, the situation in Gaza is difficult. But apart from that, no Jewish people live any longer in Gaza. During the year 2000, they left. The situation is difficult and unacceptable, also with regard to a humanitarian point of view. There is a role of Hamas, and on the other hand, we had the death of 6 million Jewish people, which was due to the state. Reducing the problem is one thing. To look at things in a relative way is another thing. Well, teachers have to be prepared for such situations. This is something we missed in Germany and also in France. Mrs. Ficke from the European Commission is asking the following question very concretely. Following the initiative of the European Parliament, of Mrs. Hohlmeier and other members of Parliament, to introduce a new research center. A new research center for democracy would be a good thing. If we could do something with regard to the Muslim region, it would also be a good thing. If I look at the right-wing extreme field, a lot of issues haven't been mentioned yet. We, for instance, recently started a study how we can combat racism online on the 2nd of June. Death happened a year ago, and we still have a lot of gaps here. If we talk about safety and democracy, it is not the only issue. We still have a whole series of gaps with regard to the extreme right wing and extreme left wing. There are a lot of open questions when it comes to defending our democracy. A general suspicion is something which is wrong. There are numerous Europeans who participate in society, who support the system, and who are democratic. It is not about looking at things from one angle only, but we shouldn't put aside a lot of things. This is a mistake we made in the past. We have to look at the functioning of the networks to combat them.
We already have the context of the net, not only because of Corona. The net is an ideal basis for conspiracy theories and similar things. I do have a question from Martin Hein. He is asking, which are the opportunities for the European Union to fight against anti-Semitism also in the net, or is the net without rights? This is something we talked about also yesterday, disinformation, but obviously this is going ahead. quite specific. We can say that Europe is the region where we have more regulation than in any other regions in the world. In 2016, we had a code of conduct where the regions said they will they will tackle with hate speech in 24 hours, the latest. And it's not only the responsibility of the platforms to decide what is a hate speech and what isn't. This is a legal question. The state has to intervene, but it's not the responsibility of the platform to be only a platform for hate speech.
Zugestehen würde. Ja? Also da ist das, was illegal in der
what is illegal in the real world is illegal also in the net. And the responsibility of the state is to fight against the people who are distributing this hate speech physically or via algorithms should be brought into trial, and we have a lot of initiatives to all these informations and the observatory. I guess it's very important also in relationship to what we said beforehand, because this can lead not only to hate speech but then also to violent actions. And we have now a paper that has to be decided upon that you have to cancel terroristic approaches. But shouldn't we do the same thing? We are not doing this in between 24 hours. Because there is also this nearness to terrorism, and in between 1 hour this has to be deleted. It's quite difficult to apply this only on anti-Semitism on one field. We have to talk about hate speech in general. And in the next 1 or 2 years, we will have a lot of discussions also in the whole digital field, where we can see and say we have one field like a highway, and we do need different rules than the rules we had up to now.
Und das dann auf Jahresfrist oder in was für einem Zeitrahmen muss man sich das Ganze vorstellen?
Which would be the time framework? In between 1 year, we should have a decision. One more question. I hope I read it right. Niederfer Kues, Groß-Gerau. It might not be the right question for you, Mom, but maybe you can tell us, why don't we have a person responsible for racism, and why is nobody trying to create such an office? I guess this is a question you have to ask in Berlin at a European level. We have somebody against hatred in the Islamic field, and we want to fight against all forms of racism. But anti-Semitism, especially in Germany, is something very important and has therefore to be tackled in the right way, in the proper way. Now, you were talking about the different coordinators. Do you exchange in between colleagues? With the colleagues for the Muslimic part, we have a very strong cooperation, and we have a network in between the coordinators of, against anti-Semitism. I'm leading this office, and we meet twice a year. And in Germany, we do have also regional coordinators, and there are some regions that are participating also in our meetings. I guess we must have the exchange of good practices we already have up to law proposals that might or might not be pushed in order to coordinate everything properly. But not only at the European, also at the national and regional level. As far as best practices are concerned, Hildegard Claire made a good question. She is asking if there are possibilities, special programs like the cooperation program for Jewish and Christian cooperation in Germany. We have different forms, and it's obviously something we have to see. We have rights, equality, and citizenship program. It ended on the 29th of April, but every year there is money for the future work. It's 10 million euro. It's not a lot, but it's really on specific projects on the spot that can be realized, and we see that we have many more requests than what we can pay for, and therefore we have another program, the culture of remembering, and there we have possibilities to cooperate with others in between the member states. In education, we have also many programs, and we know it's not always easy with the European funds, but we are interested in interesting and good projects, especially if we are talking about educating young people. What are you talking about? What are you working on? Facing the Facts, for example, has been a project. How to work against conspiracy theories. Then we have a training program for police. What is this program considering? It's an online training in order to recognize what antisemitism or hate speech. These are things that have to be realized by these persons. And we also have projects in the schools where Jewish pupils can go to a school and talk about their life, how they live there being a Jewish person. And this is something very interesting for many of them, because many of them for the first time see and speak to a Jewish person.
Which is somehow frightening, isn't it? Why? We have 1.5 million Jewish people in Europe, which is a lot. And that's also important. We would like to promote Jewish communities. Next year, we're going to celebrate 1,700 years of Jewish communities, and we would like to celebrate the very positive contribution which comes from Jewish community. I realized Jewish communities when I was in the US. I had, of course, heard a lot when I was in Germany. Well, all this is changing. A lot has become more visible. There are a lot of projects. There is the Eurovision Song Contest where young people sing songs and show dances, and there is a Eurovision jury. Yes, this is for young people, and they prepare for the event, and there is a very nice atmosphere during this contest, or the discussion which I had 1 or 2 years ago when I wanted to live in Berlin. Jewish communities are part of Berlin life, and the fact that we still consider this as being something special should question us. I have another anonymous question, which I'm going to shorten a bit. How about xenophobia concerning African people? We have talked about antisemitism concerning Jewish people, racism concerning Black people is, of course, a huge and enormous problem which affects all possible areas of life when it comes to looking out for accommodation, for a job. It concerns a lot of fields. It arises a lot of questions. Of course, we have legal regulations which enforce that this is illegal, but of course it is all about the enforcement. Microphobia, as we call it in English, should be tackled, and it is a very important field as well. Just as anti-Semitism, the fact that we talk about anti-Semitism over here doesn't mean that we shouldn't combat all other forms of racism elsewhere. Thank you very much indeed, Katharina. Thank you for this dialogue, which was very enriching. I thank you for having participated. We listen to Mr. Parash in a week, and therefore we are going to pursue our series. And of course, you can dial in. I'm going to repeat the number you can dial. Have a nice day. You deserve a cup of coffee or some soup, and I hope you are going to have a nice afternoon. Thank you very much indeed.